Hello, gentles and ladymen. I am Bison Gaming, and today we are going over the new Crab Champions update that just came out a few days ago. I have been super excited about this update, and I've been really looking forward to covering it, and I wanted it to cover the day of, but of course, the update just had to come out during the 3-day period where I was traveling across the country in my car for a cross-country move after separating from the military. So, unfortunately, we couldn't quite get the video out a little bit earlier. And also, unfortunately, I usually enjoy having a co-commentator as company when I do these patch note videos, but alas, that is not going to be the case for today, and it is just going to be me by my lonesome. However, we have some excellent things to talk about in regards to Crab Champions and this newest update, and it is a big update. I do know that I have not played the game in this new update yet. I've been wanting to read the patch notes first, and it's just that we can get, and I haven't read these yet because I want to get a blind reaction. So it has been a while since the last update. This will most likely be the pace moving forward. Larger updates every 1 to 2 months. Hey, whatever you gotta do, Noisestorm, to not overflood us. So, patch highlights, we now have difficulty modders. We are able to add modders of increasing difficulty and achieve specific ranks. Now, these difficulty modders can include things like taking away your invulnerability from killing gunpowder enemies, to just making everything violently explode. You know, there's all sorts of cool stuff here that can absolutely ruin your day. Now, one of the things that let's get into this stuff. No more cooldowns, complete loot rebalance. There have been countless rebalances to loot in this patch, details in the full patch notes below, but the main things to be excited for, almost all mods that previously had boring cooldowns, meaning you could only trigger them once every few seconds, are now chance-based, allowing you to trigger them multiple times in a short time span. Each additional level of these mods increases the trigger chance and the effectiveness of the mod. Okay, so this is extremely important because it means that most abilities are now going to behave very similarly to Ultra Shot. And this was one of the reasons that Ultra Shot was one of the best perks in the game, is because it increased exponentially as it increased in both percentage chance and efficiency in what it did. But now it appears that most shots are going to be behaving in this kind of manner, which is much more interesting, as it's going to completely reshape the meta and balance in this game. This will make mods like Dagger Arc or Bubble Blast scale nicely into the endgame. That's very good to see. Because Bubble Blast is very good, but it's mostly just good against early game bosses, and that's about it. Damage increasing perks now affect the damage of weapon and grenade mods that spawn secondary projectiles, again like Dagger and Bubble Blast, which makes more sense and allows for better scaling. Oh yeah, this was a big thing. So perks that you could get that increased your damage would only affect your shot damage and not any outside damage things like reload art, for example. So I always thought it made like very little sense, but it looks like now everything is going to be properly multiplicative with each other, which is a very big deal. These changes mean that finally the more fun mods are a viable choice over straight up flat damage boosts, as for a long time these mods just couldn't keep up and they weren't worth taking. This should introduce far more build variety than before. Physics and base destructibles. These add a layer of chaos to the islands compared to the existing static explosive rocks. Oh, so we have what looks like explosive barrels and mines that bounce around now when you hit them. That's very, very cool. And oh my god, that is a lot of barrels. Tons of quality of life improvements. It looks like there's elemental barrels as well, which is really nice. This update is packed full of highly requested quality of life features, such as you can now press Q by default to auto-loot every single piece of loot and chest on an island without having to manually open and choose each pickup, which could really slow down late-game runs, especially with perk combos like big chests and faulty chests. Got it, so that's cool. The same amount of crystals is given to all players in multiplayer when eliminating enemies to prevent unlucky players from falling behind in a run. This is a huge deal to me, and I think this will have to be paired with the overall number of crystals in the game going down in order to not just completely break the game. But it was a very, very big deal that you would only get crystals for things that you would only get crystals for things that you killed, because when one player gets more powerful than the other, he is going to scale a lot harder because he gets more money than everybody else. And now it behaves a lot more in Risk of Rain rules, where when one player kills, everybody gets the gold, and thus everybody can keep up with everybody else. You can no longer be frozen for 2+ seconds, leading to unfair deaths. Okay. Cool. So now freeze will no longer affect us more than 2 seconds. Many cannons and common and frustrating bugs have been fixed, such as key totems not working if you aren't hosting a multiplayer game, getting eliminated by totems if you had a perk that increased your incoming damage. Oh my god, I had this happen to me during one of my speed runs, and glue shot not damaging consistently, etc. Got it. Okay, added 12 modifiers that each add a challenge to allow you to rank up in exchange for a difficulty increase. I try to make it so that each... Okay, I actually read some of these in the beta patch notes, and one of the things that I noticed is that all of these difficulty modifiers are only negative. There are none that make the game easier for if you want to just test out a build, and this is one of the core things that Risk of Rain included. Was they had in Risk of Rain you had modifiers as well. I think they were called artifacts in that game, and one of them was called Artifact of Command, and you wouldn't use this in your standard run unless you just really liked running an Artifact of Command, because it basically made the game piss easy. It allowed you to pick your items no matter what, just based on their difficulties. So if you would open a chest and you would get like a blue weapon mod in Crab Champions, you would let you pick any blue mod that you wanted. And while this wasn't, something that you would do in practical runs or show off to people to show how good you are at the game, it was very, very important for the purpose of it was very, very important for the purpose of testing builds. You could test item combinations to see if they have synergy before you run out and look for them out in the wild, and that was a very important thing when it came to build making in Risk of Rain 2. And I'm hoping that we see it, that we see something like that, some easier difficulty modifiers in here, just for that kind of purpose, or to shake up the way the game plays, such as no more chests being spawned, but enemies have a low chance of dropping items instead. I think that those kinds of things are really good for adding a lot of variety. Adding new auto loot keybind that will automatically pick up all available loot. It will automatically pick the highest rarity option and salvage all remaining loot. Great for game runs with lots of loot to sort through that previously took a lot of time per island. Yeah, that's really nice. I don't really like going into super high levels where you have 80 levels of big chest, but I can see for the players who do, that would be a huge issue. Damage line of sight checks now ignore enemies, so grenades, explosive weapons, and melee will now damage all enemies in the damage radius. Before, only a fraction of the group of enemies would take damage, while others blocking the damage entirely. This is a huge boost to melee builds, and grenades as well, but I use a lot of melee, and that was one of the things I noticed, where enemies that were clearly in range were not being affected by my attack because the enemy right in front of them took the blow. And it is nice to see that is getting fixed. That is a big deal. New XP system. For every 10,000 score you get in a run, you level up. This is a permanent account level that can infinitely be leveled up. For each challenge level, you get 5% more XP. I wonder if these levels are just going to be for bragging rights, or if we will get unlocks as we go. That will be very interesting. Added physically simulated barrels and landmines. Very excited to see some of those. Added new enemies, only seen with evolved enemies difficulty multiplier active. Oh, interesting. Okay, we'll have to definitely try that. These include Elite Barrel Skull, Laser Crab, Minigun Crab, and Homing Grub. Those all sound terrifying, and I want to try them so badly. Laser skull, barrel skull, laser crab, minigun crab, homing grub. The minigun crab in particular sounds problematic, so we'll definitely be seeing what those guys do. Added new enemies, only seen. Oh right, yeah, we just read that. Perks that increase damage. Yep, we saw that. Oh my god, there's a lot of stuff here. It's not very organized. It's just all in a list. Most mods that had cooldowns. Yep, we read that. Perks that. Yep, we read that. When aiming the crossbow, the arc spread is now tightened. Thank you! Now you don't need 20 levels of grip tape for your crossbow to be useful. Woo! Big deal right there. Heavily optimized the amount of individual FX instances that can be visible at once, which should reduce late game frame drops with a lot going on. I honestly don't even think this is necessary. This game already runs like 50 times better than Risk of Rain. Like, let's be real here. Risk of Rain would crash as soon as you hit like as soon as you hit like zone 6. Heavily optimize the maximum amount of individual damage text numbers that can be visible at once, which should also help late game performance. Projectiles now hit the blue island border walls, which means improved performance in cases where lots of projectiles are being spammed. Oh, that's cool. So they're not just going to fly off the island forever. Optimized the oh, that also means like bounce shots should be able to bounce off the blue borders now, which is cool. Optimized the shrapnel challenge modifier projectiles. All right, these are going to be the modifier changes that we haven't even encountered because we haven't done modifier yet. Greatly improved the responsiveness of physics objects in multiplayer. Added new weapon mod, landmine shot. Ooh. We have barrel explosion for the grenade mods. Add new rideable barrel to the lobby. Hop in and find Tony. Interesting. All right, we'll have to check that out. Added new challenge modifier, homing barrels. Added new destructible rock type, max health rock, gold. Ooh, so you can destroy a rock and raise your max HP. That's a big deal. That's super cool. Improved gold skin visuals to be brighter and more vibrant. Yeah, I was kind of thinking that the gold skin was kind of dull and that it wasn't going to be something that I actually wanted to use once I unlocked it. Dagger Arc, Piercing Wave, Arcane Blast, Shotgun Blast, Mace Shot, Firework Shot, Thorn Shot, Torpedo Shot, Fireball Shot, Sharpened Axe, and Triangle Shot are now chance-based instead of cooldown-based. Oh, that means Triangle Shot's going to be insane with the sniper rifle. Good lord. This should make them far more interesting and fun to choose instead of straight-up stat boosts. The maximum ice stacks a player can have at once is now 25. Yep, we saw that. All bad things happen when taking damage perks now won't trigger when taking constant fire damage and will only happen on direct hits from enemies. Okay, sounds good. Enemies can no longer change targets while in the middle of an attack and facing another player. Thank God! That was super annoying, actually. I encountered this quite a bit in multiplayer when playing with Chase. Interact cooldown has been removed from portals to prevent situations where multiple players interacting with portals in a short time frame wouldn't count every player. Yes, this is something that me and Chase encountered a couple times where we would both hit the portal and then would only count one of us, and then we would debate who we need to click it twice instead of just both of us clicking it twice so that it moved us to the next island, because we're idiots that way. But yeah, that's why you subscribe, right? Exactly. Improved controller navigation on the difficulty. Okay, cool. Added 3 new achievements and skins. Nice. The balance changes. The maximum time a Horde Island has been reduced from 90 seconds to 60 seconds, as they can often drag down the pace of a run a lot. Since they're now shorter, I've adjusted the enemy spawn curve to be more intense. Ooh, interesting. All right. Whenever multiple elites or bosses spawn due to looping and or difficulty modifiers, they can now all be different types of enemies. Ooh, okay, so this is cool. This means that, you know, when you hit Island 4 and you run into your elite, you're not just going to get, you know, 2 lightning crabs. You might get a lightning crab and a fire crab. That's gonna shake things up a lot. That's gonna add a lot of variety and a lot more reason to loop, I think. I'm very excited for that. reduce the amount of bounces that elite lightning crab projectiles can do, and also increase the time between their attacks. Thank fuck. Okay, I made a point about this in my crab champions enemies tier list. The lightning crabs are so much worse than the fire crabs, even though they both kind of do similar projectiles, because the lightning crabs bounce a lot more and a lot more unpredictably, and they shoot the projectile, their fan projectiles way more, as opposed to the fire crab, which is much calmer in when it comes to shooting out the projectiles. And also, they only spend about half the time shooting out those fans, which are, again, easier to avoid because they don't bounce as much, and they spend the other time shooting the much easier to avoid shotgun. So the lightning crab was really like the apex predator when it came to the elite crab types, and I am really happy to see that the lightning crab projectiles has been helped and taken care of. Poison crab health reduced, okay. Key totems in the lobby are now much more likely to drop legendary loot. Thank you! Because I unlocked all the loot, and I haven't gotten a single legendary since I unlocked my last piece of gear. And that's kind of crazy. Auto rifle damage increased from 28 to 30. Orb launcher increased from 35 to 36. Grenade damage increased to 350. Ooh, big grenade boost here. Bouncing shot now works slightly differently. Each level of bouncing shot adds +1 bounce. Previously, no matter what level, it gave 4 bounces. Oh, interesting. Okay, so in addition to doing more damage per bounce, it also adds more bounce per stack. Man, this is, which I guess will make bouncing shot work a lot better with piercing shot now, huh? That'll be very interesting. I still want to make a bouncing shot, heavy shot launcher build. I think that would be super goofy and fun. Yeah, okay. Made reaching max combo much easier. Cool. Homing shot now has a much shorter homing range, which should prevent it from completely breaking the game. It's still powerful when used on lined up enemies with piercing, but it should make situations where all you have to do is fire in the sky to clear an island much less common. Okay, so the homing shot is still going to increase your difficulty, but you now actually kind of have to aim in the general vicinity of your opponent in order for it to actually do anything. That's totally fair and reasonable. I support this. Scavenger is now a fixed 5% chance for enemies to drop health pickups, but the amount of health increases with each level so it can scale better into the end game. Big fan of this. I love Scavenger. I think it's a great perk, especially in the early game. However, it falls off very quickly because the amount of health you get from it never increased past 25. And so you'd have to just run around the map and find every goddamn pickup that you dropped in order to get everything out of it. And poison was extremely overpowered, so it no longer affects damage from non-direct damage like fire damage. This makes flat damage bonds more consistent and prevents unfair deaths where you are set on fire while also poisoned, leading to insane incoming damage. Poison stacks have also been adjusted to be closer to fire in terms of balance, as before landing even a single bullet with the poison shot mod active would grant a 25% damage bonus when hitting that enemy again. Way too overpowered in comparison to the other elements. All poison-based mods and perks have had their poison stacks rebalanced to be more in line with the other elements. So yeah, you heard that here. Poison was blatantly OP. I'm gonna say it was broken. Poison was ridiculous, and now that's been fixed. Iron Claw's negative debuff has been reduced from 100% melee cooldowns to 50%, so it should be more viable to use now. I still don't think it's very viable. I still think, at least now with 3 points of Blender, you can negate it entirely, but I would rather just have 3 points in Blender and not have the Iron Claws at all and just be a machine gun with my melee, personally. Valued Customer now increases max health instead of just healing, making it much more useful. Yeah, that's a big deal. I never took Valued Customer, but I might now, because now it's going to be a solid way to increase max HP. Fortitude buff, personal space, and bullseye eliminations need to trigger reduced from 10 to 8. Damage increased from 15 to 20. The health of all turrets has been increased from 100 to 10,000, so you're not going to need to worry about your turrets ever again. Reduce grenade knockback strength to make grenade mods such as Spike Strike or Crystal Barrage more useful. Yes, this is actually something that I complained about in regards to things like Bubble Blast. So you throw out Bubble Blast, right? And Bubble Blast was a great tool against elites, but it didn't work against anything else because the bubbles would spawn, but all the enemies would be way outside the bubble radius because they would just get blasted away. So I heavily approve of that. That's going to make grenades things way better. Shotgun blast per pellet increased from 125 to 400. Now, this seems like a massive increase in damage. However, this is actually to compensate for the fact that shotgun blast is, of course, chance-based now instead of guaranteed once per second, which is going to make it potentially much less consistent. So that actually seems like a reasonable change here. Ultra Shot base trigger increased to 50%. And damage increased from 400 to 500. Holy fuck. Okay, so Ultra Shot is getting a buff. Like, holy shit. And same with Time Bolt. Man, these were already like some of the best perks in the game, and they seem to be intent on keeping them that way. Firework Shot damage increased from 500 to 1,000. Thank you. Firework Shot was so bad. Like, Firework Blast on the grenade is a great perk. But Firework Shot was garbage. You couldn't aim it and it would do less damage than fucking like Reload Arc. Reload Arc was way better than Firework Shot in that regard. Like, Reload Arc was insane, and I still think Reload Arc is probably going to be one of the best items in the game. All aura perks other than Damage Aura now have a larger radius, which should make them much more useful. And then they also got cooldown reductions of 5 to 4 seconds for poison, 9 to 6 seconds for lightning, 12 to 8 seconds for ice, 10 to 6 seconds for fire. Man, look at that. And then fire shot stacks per fire stacks per hit. There we go. Increased from 40 to 100. So wow, they got this a huge boost to fire. That's fair though, because fire was ass. The only thing fire was good for was triggering like oil can. That's it. That's all it was good for. Random shot debuff stacks per hit increased from 10 to 25. Critical chain cooldown reduced from 12 seconds to 10 seconds. That makes sense. Gemstone damage increased from 5% island to 6% after each island. Dagger projectiles now move 50% more slowly, but have a 50% increased radius, so they should be far more useful and effective. Yeah, I agree with this. The dagger projectiles on paper do a shit ton of damage per second, but they're only in the enemy for a split second, and therefore do like next to no damage. I am in huge approving of this. Like, the dagger abilities were ass. FMJ damage increased from 50% to armored enemies to 100% damage versus armored enemies. This is totally fair, because I actually did some damage tests with FMJ, and it only increases the damage versus the armor. So as soon as the armor is gone, FMJ has no purpose, and it does nothing to your damage. So making it at least more effective against armor is going to be a big deal. That's going to allow you to just tear through armor. Tear through that temporary little armor stuff. So that's really nice. Ghost ammo chance to not use ammo per shot reduced from 20% to 15% to balance it better with efficiency, as that is the same chance, but you actually have to hit it for something to take effect. Bouncing shot now starts with a few extra bounces to prevent cases where it could get stuck on the ground and appear not to bounce at all. Got it. That makes sense. Bribe, Damage Seeker, and Double-Edged Sword will no longer trigger when stepping into non-damaging poison/ice zones. Okay, that makes sense. Increased melee knockback strength by 50%. Cool. Grave Dodger has been removed for now, as it was extremely broken at high levels and basically prevented a run from being lost with 60+ seconds of invulnerability when reaching 1 HP on each island. Yeah, that seems hilariously broken. Melee knockback strength has been toned back slightly, as the previous buff caused enemies to get stuck in crevices around the map. Okay, so he actually just copied and pasted all of his patch notes across all the betas, even if some of them were contradictory to each other. That's kind of funny, actually. Don't worry, Noise Storm. I got you. I understand it. You know, you have a lot on your plate. You're like a single developer for this absolutely outstanding game, I must say. Removed lightning slugs from the challenge crystal enemy pool and added laser crabs and minigun crabs instead. Interesting. All right. Ultra Mushroom now has the same spawn weight as other grenade mods. Cool. All turret projectile damage increased by 50%. Mace ball projectiles have less gravity. Okay, so yeah, mace ball were... Yeah, that's just gonna make mace balls even better, because mace balls were, like, ridiculously OP. There are a few things causing damage numbers to skyrocket and make other mons that deal flat damage essentially useless very quickly. I had toned these back so that a wider range of build options is available. Critical hit calculations were unintentionally extremely strong. Power Punch was multiplying the original critical hit multiplier, and then got multiplied again by Mega Crit. This resulted in insane inflations to damage, when the multipliers should have been additive. This is corrected now. Okay. The adjustments below were made as balancing in response to damage increasing perks now being able to affect secondary projectiles, such as Dagger Arc. Okay, so yeah, these... a lot of the damage increasing perks have been toned down, due to them affecting more things at once. Got it. I understand. And that is it. This is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Tony should now be visible in the game as well. So, you know, stay tuned for, you know, when we actually take a look at in the game and do our first crazy runs. We're going to try to get some of these medals, and that will be absolutely great. Until then, thank you so much for watching, gentles and ladymen. Have a great day, and goodbye.